making the video. Okay, and we're live.
All right, today is September 26th, and this is a meeting to check in on active design and usability tasks for Backdrop CMS. We have a couple ongoing issues for backdropcms.org, our flagship website. One of them that I think has some good actionable items on it is updates to the try backdrop page. So there's an issue for this. It's number issue 555 in the backdropcms.org queue on GitHub. And I think where we are with this is that we have some recommendations in that issue of how we could make this page a little better. And we just need someone with some time to implement them for us. So that page right now is a view. So I think what we would need is changes to the view and changes to the template files for the view. So I don't think it's too terribly complicated. If there's something in there that requires like new modules or whatever, that might be a bigger task, but I don't know what we're gonna do for accordions there. Got a couple of options. We also have a handful of user experience issues pulled out for Backdrop CMS, the project itself. One new one that's been getting a lot of attention in the past few weeks is issue number 2370 in the Backdrop queue, and it is to change or fix the drop-down parent link behavior for smart menus. And I think the way this works right now is when you're on mobile, it gives you a link on the right-hand side that opens the submenu and a link on the left-hand side that navigates to a page. And on the parent menu, you don't get links to open the submenu, you get hovers to open the submenu, which is a little bit confusing. The user interface pattern for most people when they're using drop-down menus is not to click on parent links at all. Usually what they do is click only on the lowest level link. So they'll navigate the menu all the way to the bottom and think that those are their options. And so if we have links in the primary menu, but we don't have copies of those links in the child menus, it could be that nobody ever goes to any of your top level pages. And so I think the proposal here is to duplicate the parent link into the top of the child menu so that people will click on those landing pages. In the mobile version of the menu, it's also confusing that you have one stripe that has the two buttons on it. So having the cloned link as the top level of the child would enable the top level link, the entire bar, to be a single click that would open the menu, which is also a little bit of a more intuitive behavior for the menu. So the recommendation here is to clone the link from the top level links to be the first link in the child menu, and then rearrange the way the linking works so that the top level link would only ever open a menu. Same thing on desktop and on mobile. And all of the links in the children would be the ones that go to the pages. So this issue is currently labeled as help wanted. I wanted to add needs feedback label here too, so we could get some more discussion about it. I think in general, it's a good idea, but it is a pretty big change to how things currently work.
The other thing with this issue is that it was actually fixed in core, but only for the basis theme. So the idea is to try and fix it in like generically, so it doesn't matter what theme you're using, but all things by default will use the new pattern whatever we choose. But yeah, basis is fixed, but other menus aren't yet.
So I think the fix that went into basis was just a color change fix, wasn't it, for the submenus, like for the mobile version, so that you could tell the difference between the link that went to a page and the link that opened the menu. Was there other changes that went in? I haven't looked at this. Here it is. This is issue number 2553 was the one that applied the fix for basis. let's see. This also added, so it added the color change and it added an indentation. So is it every child link that gets indented? Or is it only the first one? No. It looks like everyone does.
I haven't looked at this in a while either, but it just made some general styling changes to make it look nicer and like a bit more user friendly, like the plus minus signs on the right hand side style a bit differently to make them stand out a bit more, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it also looks like it definitely looks much better in basis, which is good, but we have introduced a bug with this where if you have a menu with lots of levels of nesting, the amount of text you have available for, or the amount of space you have available for your text is going to end up shrunk, and your links are going to be like a character long or something, because every time we indent, we're taking away space from the where the text has. So it depends on how you set up that menu. If it has like a fixed width, you're going to be running into problems. Where if it doesn't, if you have a full width one, it depends on the width of your screen. So as long as your link isn't more than 300 characters or whatever, it'll still work. But the proposal was to take the fix that went into basis, which is the one that has the bug but looks better, and put it into core, so that it would affect not just sites that are sub-themes of basis, but sites that have their own custom themes that haven't overridden the menu system. So that we would get the improvements from the display changes, which are good, but we would also need to figure out the ramifications of imposing this like fixed width problem on people. There's also an outstanding issue that's related about the right to left changes. The indentation got added for left to right, but not for right to left. And I was thinking we might be able to fix both problems if the right to left solution was to remove the indentation, or maybe just to remove the indentation on like levels 3 and deeper, so that we still get the nice indentation for levels 1 and 2, which is the primary use case. And then when people do have crazy menus, they just don't get crazy indentation that goes with it. That might also be a nice way to squeeze that in with the right to left fix, where we add the indentation for the first 2 levels and then stop the indentation later. I don't know, something we're thinking about. I don't know, I haven't looked at all of these issues or the code changes that went in. I don't know how hard it is to change, but I think we should get some feedback on what people think about implementing a functionality change for everybody, if that needs to wait until the next release, or if we could do a visual change as a bug fix release and the functionality change later, or not introduce the functionality change at all. So we've got some options on how to improve the menu. No thoughts? Okay, well, if you have thoughts later, feel free to add them in any or all of the issues. I think I might take a look at the code and see what's involved in limiting indentation or changing the link click functionality. I personally think that having the new recommended behavior for top level links only opening menus and not going to pages and then duplicating the link lower matches the way people interact with websites today, and I would prefer that. But I'm concerned about changing that behavior on everybody who's already implemented a backdrop site. So it might be the kind of thing where we might want to put a setting for that in somewhere and leave it for everyone who has an existing site the way it is now, so we're not changing things out from under them. And then for all new sites, we implement the new behavior. But I do think we should fix the visual stuff somehow for everyone. Okay, we can revisit that later. So the main issue 2370 is the one about the behavior, and it has some visual changes that got into, as a link to an issue with the visual changes that got into basis, which is number 2553. All right, other issues specifically focused around usability. We have this ongoing issue to add promoted modules into the installer. It's 3193, if anyone wants to work on that one. We have an ongoing issue for creating a theme function that will handle both a human name and a machine name for a thing, for example, content type or layout or view. And we have a lot of things that we're adding into core that seem to be needing this behavior. And every time we add it in, we build a new user interface and we might display these things slightly differently. And so I think it would be great if we could get this in soon so that we can start updating all of our interfaces to be consistent in how they display these things. I think most recently what we added was the layout templates page for the flexible layouts, and that was a new addition. I think fieldable files might also have had an example of that. So it's just something where it's a pattern. It would be good to have a handy tool for developers so we get it right. And we have another issue here. This one I think is pretty important and relevant for trying to get people who are design, passionate about design, working on Backdrop, is to be able to support SVG images. There's an SVG image module, a contrib module for Drupal. We can look at how they solve this. There's one that adds a new type of field, and there's one that modifies the existing image field. So maybe there's a couple of different ways we can do it. I would love to see the current image field modified so that if people want to add SVG images to their site, they do not have to create a separate field and manage all of those images separately from the other images that they have. But it will require a little reworking of the theme image function to remove image dimensions from how those are printed out. Or the same thing for image styles. We probably don't need an image style generated for an SVG. So we'd have to have some kind of workaround for that built in there too. It gets complicated. And then if anyone else is interested in user experience issues, specifically for Backdrop, there is a tag in our issue queue, square bracket UX, at the beginning of any issue title indicates that that issue is focused on usability. I'm not really sure the SVG image one is usability. I mean, I guess it is because we can't use SVGs, but yeah, it could also just be design focused. Don't know. Also a feature request. All right, so for design focused issues, we have one about in the basis theme. I don't know if it's, yeah, I don't know if we have an issue for this one or not, but in the basis theme, the page title area has a background color. Also, the site name has a background color. I'm not sure if this issue was supposed to be for site name or for page title, but
I think it's supposed to be site name.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought maybe I wrote it down wrong.
Okay. And I was supposed to create an issue. I don't know if I did that or yet. Let me check.
Okay.
I mean, just quickly, the context for that is I've been finding a lot of little things, a number of little things like that. Like, for example, also, if you create 2 hero blocks or 2 hero rows and put them next to each other, the default basis theme will put a white gap between them, right? And there's no way in the UI to get rid of that. You'd have to override that in your theme. And to me, that's a kind of a bug, right? You ought to create 2 hero blocks next to each other.
I've run into that before too.
Sure, and I've been finding a number of things like that. And we talked about this before. I'm going to try to at least create a meta issue of just all these little sort of tweaks to basis that would help make it work better on the box.
Great. I'm going to put that white gap thing in here too.
Okay. I mean, my experimentation with the Tatsu theme is uncovering these kinds of things, and I'm just trying to document them.
Perfect. All right, so that's all we have specifically targeting design and usability issues that we pulled out for this meeting. But there are, of course, a ton of issues in the GitHub queue that are tagged with audience design and a ton more tagged with usability. If anyone is passionate about usability, you can work on any of those, anything tagged with usability, and get into the next bug fix release, unless we decide it's a big enough feature that it might pose a risk, and then it would need to wait until the next minor release. There are a couple of other things that we have, ongoing events that would be nice, or ongoing tasks that would be nice to have done. For events, we were thinking it would be great to have a pop-up banner, but in order for someone to design a pop-up banner, we also need to have someone think about what we might want to have on that pop-up banner. Obviously, you know, the name Backdrop CMS and maybe the URL for the website but we could have a bunch of other stuff. We could have a bunch of like catchy phrases or slogan, I don't know, some kind of call to action. We haven't thought that through. So if anyone has any idea about what might be most useful to have printed on a banner, we need to have that written up before we can have someone design it, or maybe we have someone who knows how to do that, but do both, someone who could do both. And then we also had a request for a way to make stickers integrate with the glowing apple on the back of a laptop. I feel like as Apple computer popularity decreases, this will be less and less important, but right now there still seem to be a lot of people in the web development world who use apples. So we could figure out something cute to do with the dragon and the apple. People seem to like dragon stickers. That's also completely optional. We do already have dragon stickers that are perfectly fine, but it would be fun to do something else with them. So if anyone wants to do that, ask up for grabs. That's all I have for today's agenda. Is there anything any of you would like to add that we haven't already talked about?
I did get this on the agenda and we could just put it off to the dev meeting, but that issue I was talking to Nate about before, I think it's really a design usability issue. And I think if I just quickly got some feedback, it's the one with the new flexible default or flexible layout templates. It doesn't add the L dash header. It's on the agenda, it's milestone.
Yeah.
I just thought if we could talk about that for just a minute here, we might be able to resolve it. It's got a works for me on the pull request. I did a pull request. I'm just concerned about the particular solution. What I did to solve that problem was added to every row a class that is L dash whatever the row wrapper tag is.
Yeah.
So if it's a header, it adds an L dash header tag, and if it's a footer, it adds an L dash footer. Those are obvious, that makes sense, but does it make sense to have an L dash div class on a div section? I mean, because I could target this more specifically so that it just modifies footers or headers. But the simpler solution was just to do every row. And then I thought, well, let's see if I get any feedback. And so far, nobody's commented on that. So is that a good solution or not? Or should we be more targeted and just add it to footers or headers?
I mean, so I feel like we might want to be targeted for header and footer because we want those classes to match the rest of the templates.
Right.
And so if we like we already know the rest of the templates are using header tag and a footer tag in these classes, we might just hard code those in or match them more specifically. But I also feel like there's value in having L dash classes on the other rows. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it needs to be L dash div. It could be like L dash row or something like, you know, generic, but maybe not a copy of the tag. I also don't know if we need to have unique classes on each row. Is there already like a machine name class on there?
I don't remember. I
Okay.
can try to, but we do have that issue about that separate issue about IDs.
Yeah, there is a machine name class on there, but it's like a UUID, so it's not like one that you can specify.
And is does the UUID change? Would that change over time, or is that always going to be that row? Okay,
it's always it's always exactly that thing, and it's
okay.
Unique. Yeah,
that's probably fine.
Yeah, my thought on that one, Tim. I guess I'm just not opposed to the issue, but there was a suggestion earlier in the thread that rather than taking the tag name and then making a class out of it with L prefixed, that you could also just, when we create a new layout, specify on each row like L-header as one of the additional classes and L-footer as one of the additional classes. So when you create a new layout, L-header and L-footer are just added to the first and last region when you create a new one. And then there's no magic happening. It's just manually specified as a custom or an additional CSS class that you could then remove or change or something like that.
That's a good idea. I like less magic generally.
Sure.
And usually when you create a new layout template, doesn't it already come with 3 header, footer, and one in the middle?
Yeah, it comes with 3, and they're called header, content, and footer, but they're all assigned UUIDs. So
yeah. But I still think that might be good because those first three we could plug in that class as a default class. So header has header and footer has footer. And then if people want to add more, remove it, it's all right there in the interface.
I'm okay with that. So yeah, and I'm sure I can figure out how to do that. So just by default, so basically what we're saying, just to repeat it back, is that the user can currently manually add an L-dash header or an L-dash footer, but we just want to make it easy for them. And instead of automatically putting it in the template, we would just automatically add it to the configuration.
Yep.
So that they could either just leave it or remove it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And that was my concern with the initial implementation it actually hard coded, like creating a new layout. It made the rows be called header, content, and footer, which is useful in a way, except that they can rearrange the rows in any way they want to. And if you delete the content or the header and the footer, it's impossible to add it back again, because when you add it back, it's going to get a UUID. And so rather than have those special ones that were, if you deleted them, you could never get them back. And if you rearranged them, weird things would happen. We gave all of them UUIDs and then just named them header, content, and footer. So that way, if you rearrange them, you could relabel what they were, but it wouldn't have any.
What happens then if you change, like if you go to an existing layout and you change the template to a new one, does it not move the header and footer because the names don't match? I think that's a problem.
That also occurs, yes.
Yeah, so I think Tim's option might be better to actually name those things header and footer. So I think the use case of like dragging your header is really low, or your footer. But the use case of changing a template is pretty high. And I wouldn't want to lose the ability for your header to stay in your header and your footer blocks to stay in your footer.
Well, that makes me think that we need machine names for rows then, or machine names for regions, just generally.
Well, they have rows, not regions.
Sorry, yeah, actually we need machine names for regions, because that's actually where the copying of stuff happens.
I think we have that. Maybe I'm getting regions and rows confused, because it's the regions that handle the copying stuff, like you said. So if the row has a UUID, but the region inside is header, it'll still copy.
Right, but that's we don't have that ability right now to name regions either. Like there's no machine names on regions at all, either.
All right, I think I created.
So it's weird that the row has the header tag and the footer tag.
Right.
But the region is the thing that needs the name.
Right.
For copying blocks to work.
So, but all of our current layouts, the row has the header tag or the footer tag, and the region inside that row has a adequate, appropriately named region. What if we, this is getting a little crazy, but what if we, in the flexible layouts, what if we provided like 3 types of rows that could be added? A header row, a footer row, or a content row. And a header row would have a header tag and a header region. A footer row would have a footer tag and a footer region. And all the content rows would be the same. And so by default, we place a header row and a footer row that has the tag and the region that match, so that you can switch your layouts and it's no problem. And all the other ones are just the same as what they are now, like a UUID and whatever region names you're allowed to define.
And you could only add one header or one footer or one content row?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. It would
What
make
would
sense
that-
from a semantic markup point of view.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that would, I mean, it would be a shortcut basically. But I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I
what,
don't know.
what
I feel like-
value you would get. Like
I
it
feel
wouldn't
like-
help with the copying blocks problem or anything like that.
Well, it would if you had the right names.
No, because it add footer or add header row, add content row, and add footer row are rows, not regions.
But
So
they
it
come with
doesn't
the region in
copy.
them.
But they come with the regions in them,
One region in them.
and you can't change it.
Well, like right now, when you create a new flexible template, don't you have 3 rows and 3 regions?
Yes,
So that would just be copying in that same default config.
but the content region you frequently would want to change into multiple columns.
Right.
one
So
of
this
which
was like
would
add
be-
row right now when you add a row, it's the same thing.
And just to be clear, columns and regions are interchangeable.
Yes.
No, oh yes, columns and regions are interchangeable. Yeah, I don't know. We
I
can
think
talk more
this
about it.
needs more testing to figure out what we need to do.
Can I throw just another thing in the
Yes.
This is definitely going beyond the particular issue I was concerned about.
Yeah.
This came up because I tried to just basically switch the homepage, to take a default 3-row flexible layout template and put it on the front page. And the header and the footer totally broke, which was my little thing would fix. What it doesn't fix is that the hero block on the front page. And I was about to create an issue suggesting that maybe we had a 4th automatic row, just to make it sort of consistent, that every flexible layout is consistent with, say, the front page of Basis. But as I started doing that, I'm like, I don't know if that's necessary. A lot of flexible layouts wouldn't be used on the front page, so they don't need a hero row. So maybe we shouldn't automatically do that. It does mean that you can't, immediately transit them, but I don't know that you can manually add the row, right? And you can make your front page look like Basis with what's currently there. It just takes extra steps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that relates to any of the other things you're talking about.
Yeah, I think for short term, maybe the first thing we should do to fix the bugs is just plug in the class, like Nate recommended, plug it in the UI. But I do think we should have another issue that's like, help when I change my layout, all my blocks don't, like header and footer blocks don't go into the header and footer regions. And we can figure out how to solve that problem there.
Mm-hmm.
To sort of break this into a lot of smaller problems rather than trying to redo it all at once. Because I do like that solution of like, no magic, everything's in the UI and we're just gonna set it up correctly initially. And then if you wanna change it, you can, and that's fine, that's up to you. But we're just gonna make sure that it'll work when you first do that. Although you'll have to reposition your blocks, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. Would you guys agree that the sort of adding a default hero block or row is not probably necessary?
Yeah, that I think needs more discussion. My gut would say it's not necessary because most of the time you're not going to be creating, well, I don't know yet. My instinct says that most of the times you're not going to be creating a new page with that, but maybe every landing page would have them. So I think it's something we need more discussion on. But yeah.
I should create an issue.
Things that could be an interesting exercise, like if we were doing a training and saying we're going to make a new homepage layout, and then we would have to reproduce the same markup as the previous layout using a custom layout. Like that would be an excellent learning opportunity, but we'd also find it really quickly if it was just tedious and people were finding it to be like,
Yeah,
like
I already had some
difficult.
thoughts about that hero block thing. Like I think what we need is a utility class that you could add to any row that would turn it into a full width row. And like there's some other tools we can do that would make this much easier that is not like theme dependent. But yeah, right now it's a little tough.
Again, it sounds like your recommendations. Go ahead and create an issue for this and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See what people need, what people are using it for, if they need it.
Sure. So what I've been trying to do, where I'm uncovering a lot of this stuff, is using the new flexible layouts and stuff is like, look at some common websites. And I've mostly been focusing on the front page and saying, could I do something like an example is yesterday, somebody was just showing me a Wix website where they had set up and they just had 2 blocks with outlines and text and they were positioned nicely in the middle of the front page, right? It's like, can I do this through the UI with Backdrop today? And I try to do it until I can't. Like, well, what is the limitation? And like with that particular thing, the limitation I found was that if I can put two columns regions in a flexible layout row, but if the content isn't the same height, I can't put like a background color or anything on them because they won't expand. And so I'm using, and basically I fixed Tatsu, so Tatsu right now will recognize that and it will automatically expand the height of the block. Anyways, so I'm just trying, like, what can I do and can I do through the UI?
That's great.
And trying a bunch of random things. And that's where I'm coming up with a lot of these, the kinds of things I'm doing.
Great.
Yep. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Anything else from you, Nate?
No.
Okay. Nothing else from me either. Let's go ahead and wrap up this meeting and we'll meet again in about 13 minutes to check in on active development tasks.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. See you then.